fees het dit vervul. In die fees van die ongesuurde brode gaan ons nou na kyk, maar net vir interessantheid in Handelinge 2 vers 1. En toe die dag van die Pinksterfees aangebreek het, was hulle almal eendragtig by mekaar. Die kerk, die Nuwe Testamentiese kerk het op die Pinksterfees begin. Nou net, dis nou maar net vir interessantheid. During the spring of the year, March to April, immediately after the Passover and before the feast of Pentecost, falls another biblical feast, the 7-day feast of unleavened bread. We saw that from Exodus 12 verse 17 to 18, but also you also find it in Leviticus 23 verse 6 to 8. Let us take a brief look at the greatest event to have ever taken place during this feast and what it means for Christians today. There are certain great events that took place during the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. The first one is the Exodus from Egypt, which took place immediately after Passover, the very next day, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Feast of Unleavened Bread started on the 15th day of Nisan. On the 14th day was the Passover. On the 15th day of Nisan, it started with the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. Secondly, the crossing of the Red Sea, which is traditionally assigned to the last day of unleavened bread. This crossing signified that Israel was at long last finally free from Egyptian domination. Freedom was then to them a reality. Later, after Israel entered the Promised Land, the miraculous conquest of Jericho took place over the 7 days of this feast. There are other feasts, unleavened, other feasts, great things that took place. It involved the rededicating of people to God, their Creator, and 2 examples are recorded in 2 Chronicles. Now, let me just help you. Julle moenie dink ek is so slim dat ek al hierdie goeders van self. Die internet is 'n fantastiese bron van inligting, maar ek sê weer, dan moet jy teruggaan en kyk dat dit werklik so is. Met ander woorde, ek kan nie my naam onder hier skryf en sê ek het dit gedoen nie. Ander mense het dit gedoen, maar ek prys die Here vir dit, want dit maak my opgewonde om dit vir u met u te kan deel. So let's go on. 2 examples are recorded in 2 Chronicles chapter 29 through 31 describes the religious reform led by King Hezekiah. And chapters 34 and 35 tells of another reform that was brought about by King Josiah. These chapters reveal the tremendous excitement and joy God's people felt as they recommitted themselves to God. This all took place during the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. 2 Chronicles 30 verse 21 to 23 and 2 Chronicles 35, 17 to 18. Agterna kan julle die blaadjie daar kry, dis alles daarin. When was Jesus resurrected? We know that Jesus was crucified on the day before a Sabbath. John 19 verse 31, then the Jews, because it was the preparation, begged Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away, so that the body should not remain on the cross on the Sabbath. But listen to this part. For that Sabbath was a high day. It wasn't the ordinary Sabbath. It was the very first day. You will remember we said just now, when we spoke about it, and we said the first day, 7 dae. Laat moet julle wees. Die eerste dag, the first day shall be a holy gathering. The first day was reckoned as a Sabbath. And the last day of the unleavened bread, Feast of the Unleavened Bread, was also reckoned as a Sabbath, or a high day, or a high Sabbath. Okay. Now, while most people assume that the Sabbath mentioned here was a regular weekly Sabbath, observed from Friday sunset to Saturday sunset, John plainly tells us that this particular Sabbath was a high day. a term used for the 7 annual days that were part of God's festivals. There are 7 other days that are called a high day, which is also called a Sabbath. Now, Leviticus 23, verse 4. These are the appointed feast of Jehovah, holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their appointed seasons. In the 14th day of the first month, that means on the first month, that is Nisan, in our time, March to April, between the evenings is Jehovah's Passover. On the 14th, wanneer was Jesus gekruisig? Op die 14de dag, die middag, die oggend tot die middag van die 14de dag van Nisan. It is Jehovah's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread to Jehovah. You must eat unleavened bread 7 days. On the first day, you shall have a holy convocation. In other words, on the first day, it's a high Sabbath. Okay? You shall do no work of labor, but you shall offer a fire offering to Jehovah 7 days. In the 7th day is a holy convocation. It's also a Sabbath. You shall do no work of labor. A careful reading shows that this high day was the first day of the unleavened bread, which was a holy day. And that holy day can fall on a weekday. It can fall on any day. Net soos wat Kersfees, wat ons nou Kersfees vier, verlede jaar het hy op 'n ander dag geval. Maar hierdie jaar, die 25ste Desember, val op 'n Dinsdag. Likewise, that high Sabbath can fall on any day. Jesus remained in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights. And that's what he said according to Matthew 12 verse 40. Now it is impossible. I've tried. I've looked at different things to reconcile the evening of the Friday to the Sunday morning resurrection. It is impossible to reconcile that. But it is impossible to reconcile Jesus' statement in verse 12, Matthew 12, with the idea of a Friday afternoon crucifixion followed by a Sunday morning resurrection. There are different things that people say, but then we must realize that God is not one that wants us to be confused. So let us see. 3 days and 3 nights from the time of his burial, just before the beginning of the holy day of unleavened bread, the Sabbath, the high Sabbath, brings us to the sunset at the end of the weekly Sabbath, still during the 7-day feast of unleavened bread, as the time when Jesus was resurrected. Now, if Jesus rose exactly 3 nights after his burial, just before sunset, according to Matthew 27 verse 46 and Mark 15:34, the only candidate for his resurrection is the very end of the normal Sabbath at sunset. Counting back 3 full days, Jesus must have died on the previous Wednesday, which would have been the day of the Passover. Jesus and his disciples had observed the Passover the evening before. The first day of unleavened bread began just minutes after Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus sealed his tomb. That means he died on the Wednesday. And because the next day will be a high Sabbath, they had to take off the bodies before the evening of the Wednesday. And if you then count from then onwards 3 nights, then Jesus rose on the evening of the normal Sabbath. In actuality, there was no Sunday morning resurrection. But on that Sunday, it doesn't say in Scripture that he rose the Sunday morning. It says in Scripture, the grave was empty on the Sunday morning. There was no Sunday morning resurrection, but on that Sunday morning, word spread quickly that the tomb was empty and that he had first appeared to Mary Magdalene and then to other followers. Nou begin dit vir my sin maak. Dan kan ek sien, omdat ek nou verstaan, daar's 'n ander dag wat ook Sabbat genoem word, en wat elke jaar op 'n ander dag kan val. En dan kan maak dit vir my sin. Now, John 20 verse 14, and when she had said this, now she was asking, where did you take my master? Give him to me and I will bury him somewhere else, I'll take him. And when she had said this, she turned backward and saw Jesus standing. But she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, woman, why do you weep? Whom do you seek? Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, sir, if you have carried him away from here, tell me where you will have laid him, and I will take him away. And Jesus said to her, Mary. And he must have said Mary in a specific way that only she recognized, because he's spoken to her so many times. She turned herself and said to him, Rabboni, which is to say, Master. Nou kom ons dink net 'n bietjie. As ons onsself nou so terugvat in daardie tyd, ons is volgelinge van Jesus en ons is in Jerusalem en ons was daar tydens sy kruisiging. Ons het gesien hoe hy sterf aan die kruis, ons het al die dinge meegemaak. En nou kom ons 3 dae later en aan ons word vertel dat hy uit die dode opgestaan het. Ons word vertel die graf is leeg. Maria Magdalena het die woord versprei, die graf is leeg, die steen is weggerol, hy het opgestaan. Wat sou ons reaksie wees? Wat sou die besprekingspunt wees by elke gesprek? Wat sou op die voorgrond van ons gedagtes gewees het? Ons sou sekerlik uitroep, so is dit nog nooit gebeur nie. Dit sou sekerlik gereken word as dan een van die grootste gebeurtenisse nog. En vir 'n Joodse persoon sou dit gewees het, dit nogal gedurende die fees van die ongesuurde brood. Jesus het opgestaan uit die dode gedurende die fees van die ongesuurde brode. Wat beteken dit? Wat beteken die woorde hy het opgestaan? As 'n Joodse kind van God sou ons nog altyd die fees herdenk, maar nou met 'n ander fokuspunt. Ons het nie meer nodig dat 'n lam geslag sou word vir ons sondes nie, want die lam van God het die sonde nie net bedek nie, maar dit weggeneem. Romeine 6 vers 7. Want hy wat gesterf het, is geregverdig van die sonde. As ons dan saam met Christus gesterf het, glo ons dat ons ook saam met hom sal lewe. Omdat ons weet dat Christus nadat hy opgewek is uit die dode nie meer sterf nie. Die dood heers oor hom nie meer nie. Want die dood wat hy gesterf het, het hy eens en vir altyd gesterf, maar die lewe wat hy leef, leef hy vir God. So moet julle dan ook reken dat julle vir die sonde dood is en lewendig tot God in Christus Jesus ons Here. Vir elke kind van die Here het die fees van die ongesuurde brood die betekenis dat Jesus wat uit die dode opgestaan het, gedurende die viering van hierdie fees, nou sy lewe deur u en my wil lewe. En dan kom ons by die boodskap, die in Christus boodskap. Die feit dat Christus gesterf het, dat hy opgestaan het uit die dode en dat hy in u en in my lewe.